Well, hello, grievers. Mandy here. Restorative grief is all about creating easy access to healing, no matter where or who you are. That's why I want you to remember that if you want grief support beyond a podcast, our Patreon features monthly workbooks to accompany each episode, as well as a Discord channel for more private chats and occasional bonus content as well. Supporting this work with your finances means investing in your own wellness and the healing of others, and that in itself is an incredibly generous and restorative practice. The link to the Patreon is in the show notes, but reach out with questions, okay? Now, let's get on to this week's episode. Welcome back to Restorative Grief with Mandy Capehart. You are listening to episode 157, titled Planning Ahead for Loss with Wynne Charles. Losing a loved one is painful, but it can be especially devastating for those with cerebral palsy if unprepared. My guest today is Wynne Charles, an author, podcaster, and motivational speaker living in Arizona. After losing her mother in 2010 and her father in 2014, Wynne realized her independence was at risk. Today, she aims to inspire us to live our dream lives despite any disabilities by stressing the importance of preparing financially and legally for the inevitable. Welcome back to Restorative Grief with Mandy Capehart. I'm your host, Mandy, and today I'm honored to bring you my guest, who is an author, inspirational speaker, and Ironman competitor, Wynne Charles. I'm so grateful to have you with me today, Wynne. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me on, Mandy.
Absolutely. Why don't you start at the top? Just tell me what life is like as Wynne Charles, as an inspirational speaker, and what drew you into that work now that you're at this point in life.
Okay. What drew me into that work is watching my mom die. I literally watched my mom die at the age of 23. By the time I turned 24, I had no mom. And so she actually died of an infection in the hospital. She went into the hospital with a brain aneurysm. They called it the brain aneurysm. She had, I think, 6-hour brain surgery and was perfectly fine after they caught it brain aneurysm. Lived with the infection, mind you, for 3 days and was in the medically induced coma. The body was weak, and I saw her functioning after the brain aneurysm. I wasn't with my family when she was medevac out. Now, granted, we lived in the small town of Aspen, Colorado, and I'm not there any longer. I live in Phoenix, Arizona. Thank you very much. And so she had to be medevaced out because of the hospital, or a small local hospital could not do a complex injuries. They can barely, and I'm not kidding when I say this, and they can barely mend broken bones, let alone do complex injuries like brain aneurysms. So how we discovered the brain aneurysm is this: she was complaining of the lights were bothering her. She was complaining of nausea. She wasn't complaining of the thunderclap headache that most people complain of. Brain aneurysms and also brain aneurysms lay dormant people. So you may not even know you have one until it bursts. So basically, she flips herself over in the tub. My dad had to go get her, flip her back over, and then he decided to call her doctor, no response from her doctor. And then he decided to take her to the emergency room. They not knowing what brain aneurysm is how to treat it, they gave her a bag of IV fluids. And for those of you who know the bag of IV fluids, for those of you who've been to the hospital and had all these have had a bag of IV fluids. And by the way, people, if you hear me bustling around, I just had back surgery on April 23rd. And so, yeah, that's beside the point. But to get back to the point, the doctors gave her a bag of IV fluids and sent her home. Fast forward 2 weeks, and her sister then gets called out and says, well, someone needs to help with Win. By the way, I have cerebral palsy, which cerebral palsy is a lack of oxygen injury at birth. So I got that at birth. I was born at 1 pound, 13 ounces, 27 weeks. Only supposed to be born in September, ended up being born in June. In fact, as we record this, it's June 19th, 2024, and my birthday is on Saturday. So give you a little bit of perspective there. But her sister got called out mainly to help with me. But her sister flies all the way out. We pick her sister up at the airport. My mom's in bed at home. And she knew that my dad and I were both leaving to go pick her up at the airport. She was left alone for about the airport from my house took 5 minutes to get. By the time sister came out, it must have been 15 minutes. I mean, the airport was close to my house. We both had our cell phones on, so she could have called. By the time her sister got back to my house, she hadn't even dropped her luggage off in my house. She runs up to see her sister, my mom, because she thought she had the case of the flu, a really bad flu that needed more attention. My mom's eyes were rolling back in the back of her head. Eyes were rolling back in the back of her head. The next thing I know, my aunt gets my mom dressed. They go back to the emergency room. My aunt demands, my father being my father, like most men don't like to see a doctor. My aunt demands a CAT scan and a CT scan. They come to find out that a brain aneurysm is about to burst. The next phone call I get, and this was in July 9th. July, not, she died in August, so it was July, yeah, because I was 23, July 19th, I think. July 19th, next phone call I get is, we're medevaking mom out. And I'm like, okay, that's not the news a 22-year-old wants to hear. especially with cerebral palsy. So the next phone call I make, and I remember this so distinctly, is not to my aides, not to my aides. It was to her, my mom's best friend, and my mom's best friend, and I still talk to this day. And I remember screaming in her cell phone, and I'm surprised she's still up to me to this day. Best friend, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do it. And the next thing she knows, she gets a phone call from my dad to say this is what's going on. And the next thing I hear is my door opening, and her best friend sat with me as we made phone calls together now to all the people in my mom's life, me being on one side, my mom's best friend being on another side. And she came and sat with me until my aide showed up, which was because it was on a Saturday or Sunday, and none of us knew what was about to come next. So my mom's best friend sat with me, God, for about a good 5 to 6 hours in my room, on my bed, and we just decipher. We tried to decipher. I tried to decipher. I didn't do a very good job at what was going on. She tried. She knows me well enough to know if I just wanted to be silent. And we were making phone calls. We would try. She was trying to decipher. I was trying to decipher what was going on. And that day, all heck broke loose, and it was a day that changed my life. And then we get to, she has brain surgery. She's recovering. I go, funny enough, I race off because I was at a theater camp that week that had already been paid for, that I had already signed up for, and my BFF happened to be at that theater camp. And it was a Sunday that all this happened, and I started that theater camp all that Monday morning. I had to go that Monday morning, and I remember who took me and to that theater camp. That was my aide that took me. So everyone was gathering at that theater camp. I finally had to let the elephant out, the cat out of the bag. I said, everyone, if I am a little, and people knew my disability, people knew me too. I said, everyone, if I'm a little out of sorts, my mom's in the hospital, we're trying to figure out what is wrong. They didn't tell me that my dad, being my dad, didn't want to freak me out completely. And he didn't tell me that we knew it was brain aneurysm, but that she got down there that Sunday, and that Monday morning they did surgery. And my dad didn't tell me how long. He didn't even tell me my mom was in surgery. And so I get down there as quickly as I can. I have aid fly in to live with me because my family sent out one of the aides that my grandmother had, and so my family was totally aware that I needed help, and they took one of my grandmother's 24-hour aides. They put her on a plane out to me, and so on that Friday we raced down to Denver, all of us, the aide, my dad, my self, all of us raced down to Denver to see my mom. And when I went home, I said, Mom, and she was in the hospital, but in the ICU. I said, Mom, I'm going home. And she goes, you lucky duck. You get to go home to the nice warm bed, your bed. And I said, I will be back. Well, unbeknownst to me, she picks up this infection, and my dad tried to hide, good one dad, he tried to hide a message on his cell phone saying that my mom's in medically induced coma. Two family members meet me at the entrance of the hospital, Swedish Medical Center in Denver, Colorado. And they say, it wasn't even hello, how are you? They go, your mom's in medically induced coma. And like, well, my first reaction was, let's go see her. My first reaction was, get the hell off me so I can go see her. And then that broke loose. And then I repeated, I love you, Mom. I love you, Mom. I love you, Mom, to make her medical machines cease and be quiet, because she was freaking out inside. And for those of you that don't know, people in medically induced coma, the last thing, and I think they've done studies, when people in medically induced coma, when doctors say, squeeze your mom's hand to a child or to adult, if they're strong enough to squeeze the hand, they will. And that's why doctors typically yell commands, because they know that people are, and so for those of you that don't know, that hearing is the last thing to go. So my mom was at the point where she could hear me enough to cease the medical equipment. She wasn't waking up by any means. It wasn't miracle on miracles, yeah, but she could hear me well enough to cease medical equipment. And then I had to unfortunately watch her die. And she died, body began to let go on August 11th. By the time we got the phone call, and my dad got the phone call, I did not. And by the time we got the phone call, it was August 12th. And she had said to me, my dad didn't even know this, I told him in the conference room at Swedish Medical. She had said to me, if anything were to happen to me and I land up in the medically induced coma, pull the plug. So on August 12th, we were supposed to pull the plug. And on the medically induced coma, we were supposed to meet with doctors and pull the plug. And I'm the only one that knew that. And yeah, my dad was shocked that I knew that, and he didn't even know that. So what brought me into this work motivational speaking and leaving a legacy for others with cerebral palsy and all disabilities to boot, was watching my mom die.
Yeah. When you're an incredibly detailed storyteller, and I have to say, well, my mother died in a similarly drawn out, very traumatic medical crisis situation. But I know for me, I'm able-bodied. I can get on a plane in a drop of a hat. I wonder for you, living in a different state as I did, what was the impact of anticipating that loss and that time frame? How did you support yourself through all of that?
I did not live in Phoenix, Arizona at the time. I lived 4 hours away
Yeah,
from the hospital where my mom was dying.
yeah,
And so that was, and I have the means to drop anything. I'm self-employed. I'm a motivational speaker. So I don't have to report to work. I don't have to do any of that. So I have the means to, if there were a medical crisis in a different state and I was down here, I have the means to drop everything. I have the means to have someone come with me. And yeah, so me being in a different city in the same state scared me, believe it or not, scared me out to death, because I didn't think that she was going to make it. I was, and what I forgot to tell you is the day that my mom landed in a mentally induced coma, I was at home. My family came up to get me. My dad scared me half to death, good one. And he walks in my room at midnight and says, "Mom is so sick, we need to go down." The next thing I remember is limos in my driveway. The next morning, it was 3 limos. I got into a limo with my aunt. My dad was in his car. No, my mom's vehicle, because we still had my mom's vehicle. And so he was in my mom's vehicle with my uncle and my mom's brother. And then he landed. We were all in the limos. My aunt, myself, and my other aunt was in her own limo, and I don't know why she did that. And then we all drove down to Denver in the caravan, and I looked at my aunt at one point, and for those of you who've ever driven I-70, you know where Vail is, you know where Breckenridge is, you know where Eisenhower Tunnel is. Well, by the time we get to Eisenhower Tunnel, I look at my aunt and I'm thinking, "Mom, just hold on until I get down there." That's the last thing because when you're in medical crisis and you get those phone calls, you don't know when the person is going to, the machines are going to stop.
Mm-hmm.
And so just, I'm playing God that she holds on just until I get down there. And she did. And I was not able to say I love you because she was in a medically induced coma. I watched her die. They kicked me out of the room. They called a chaplain and all that stuff. And then in this story gets even better. In 2019, my dad gets diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. And I'm like, okay, I just had my bone rock in 2010. He gets diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. He has to go down to Denver, get diagnosed officially, and then dies 6 days after diagnosis in a rehab center. And I missed that one completely. I saw him the day before he died, and yeah, I missed his death completely. At least I was down the street when my mom died, not 4 hours away. When my mom died, I was 4 hours away when my dad died, and that was an interesting show in itself. Hence me moving to Phoenix, Arizona, and trying to rebuild my life. So that's my story in a nutshell.
Yeah. Having lost both of your parents so close to one another as well, I imagine that would be really fascinating to hear how you translate that into your speaking events and how you invite people to start pursuing their own dreams and their own life and building around such a significant loss.
Well, I started the podcast after I wrote a book about my life with cerebral palsy, basically a tribute to my mom, and I speech dictated that one. Took me a year, and then I learned about getting it edited, and then I started podcasts, and people have followed me. They know my journey, they know about my back surgery, they know about my life situation going on now, and they also know about me losing my parents at starting at age 23. So, and in the midst of all that, in the midst of all me having all this grief and loss, I got emotionally and physically abused too. And that was a fun one. Got away from that one though. And I haven't seen my abuser since 2019. She tried to come and take me away from what I knew and tried to rebuild my life. I wanted to rebuild my life, but not in that sense. No, thank you. So, and I moved to Phoenix, Arizona. But because I relate to people on such a level, they tend to follow my work. They tend to do all they can to support me, all they can to help me. I mean, I had people sending good vibes all across the country, and they knew that I was having back surgery. People knew that I was going to be in the hospital. People knew that I was slowly but surely coming back to work. I made that public knowledge because I said, look, I need to give myself space and grace to heal not only physically, but emotionally and spiritually. And yeah.
How do you speak with people who are also living with a disability, who are wondering, is it possible for me to pursue these dreams I have of being a speaker and a writer and living independently, even though I'm facing difficult circumstances?
Well, I just say you can do it. And I just say there's plenty of support out there, and there are aid agencies all across the country. The one I'm using now, believe it or not, you think they would, and this is not a promo to them, but I'm just going to say this: Visiting Angels does people with disabilities. They just don't do old. They just don't do the senior year population. They do people with disabilities.
Mm.
They just don't do the senior population. What I've come to find out is that having a strong network and having and moving to a bigger city helps too, because in these small podunk towns that, and I moved from a small podunk town. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's one of the most expensive municipalities in the country compared to LA. And so, but Aspen didn't have the resources for me. Thank you very much.
Yeah, the resourcing would be significant, and especially in a smaller town. They're
Yes.
highly coveted and probably really difficult to get into and probably higher priced.
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Gosh. Okay. One final question here. What do you want our listeners to understand about what it's like to live with cerebral palsy? And how can they learn about cerebral palsy to be more supportive and understanding and helpful members of society?
To be an ally to
Yeah.
cerebral palsy, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
And yes, I'm gay, mind you. So allyship is my better Ben and brother here.
Yeah.
So how they can be more supportive to cerebral palsy is number one, if you want to go to CNA school to become a nurse, we need more nurses.
Mm.
And if you want to be an aide, we need more aides in this country. So that's how you can be an ally to cerebral palsy, is get in the trenches and actually work with cerebral palsy instead of standing there and looking at me like I'm nuts. And also, if you see a person with any, and I'm talking about any disability, dementia, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, if you can talk to them, not the person behind them, thank you very much,
Yeah.
and not the person who's helping them, talk to them. And if they can get to church, and sometimes, and with my church down here, I just had to keep showing up. Sometimes to get what you want, you have to keep showing up and be persistent.
Yeah.
Be persistent. Fight that goddamn medical system. And I say, fight it with tooth and nail, and have a family member at your appointments, or have what they call a medical liaison. You guys can look up what a medical liaison is. I'm actually bringing one on my podcast. I have access to one. Having a medical liaison isn't cheap,
No.
but the medical liaison is worth it. And don't rely on your friends and family to help. Rely on other resources, including friends and family, because at the end of the day, your families don't go bye-bye and bye-bye to heaven. And basically, and get your paperwork all organized, get your living wills, get your trust funds all organized, talk to a trust fund attorney, and look one up in all 50 states, Google one and make phone calls, get your paperwork together if you have a loved one with a disability, because I got caught in a very sticky situation where my dad wasn't prepared to die.
Yeah.
And not only prepared to die, but he didn't have the paperwork all put together. So then I had to go to a court battle and it landed almost being custody battle of me. And because I'm my own guardian, I've been emancipated since I was 18. So you need to contact a special needs trust, not any trust fund lawyer. Look for the words special needs.
Yeah.
You need to contact, and I'm not kidding, you need to contact a special needs trust fund lawyer. And I don't care how old your child is, whether they're 6 or 17, you need to get your paperwork together, because my mom had a will made and thank God for that, because we had a legacy to stand on, but my dad did not.
Yeah.
And so I don't care. I love you, Dad, but at the end, you didn't help me. And so now I have learned my lesson. And that's been my public PSA since the beginning. You need to get your paperwork together, because you never know when you're going to get that phone call of Aunt Susie's dying. She's in medically induced coma, or your mom is dying and they're in medically induced coma, and yet Aunt Susie's taking care of your disabled sister, or your mom is taking care of your disabled sister, and they don't have the paperwork together. They don't have the dying wishes together of what they're supposed to do with you.
Yeah.
And I don't want anyone to land up in a group home or wards of the state. I almost said I got myself out of that. And I don't want anyone to land up in the position that I did. And people know my story, but as it comes to a close, I'll be able to share more. People are going to go yowza. People are going to go yowza once they find out. They know half of it, but they don't know the stuff I was dealing with in 2019.
Yeah.
And so people are going to go yowza on my podcast. And that's why I say, get your shit together, get your paperwork together.
Yeah.
And lawyers are not cheap people,
Yeah.
but at least you have the peace of the mind.
Well, they're not cheap, but they're worthwhile as an investment, because the aftermath of not having details in place or structures in place to support you is devastating.
And then always get a financial advisor. If a family member leaves you money, thank you very much, because you need a financial advisor to advise you. You don't want to be spending your trust fund and wasting it all and then having no money to live on. And so, yeah. And you need to have, if they're old enough, you need to have the conversations with your kids or bringing them to the financial advising appointments.
Yeah.
And even if they cannot speak, I'm about to look up, and maybe, Mandy, you can look this up too. I'm about to look up, is there financial advisors who specialize in special needs?
Oh, there are.
And maybe you can put a website in the show notes that people can go to. I'm saying that publicly because I know there's lawyers, but I don't know if there's financial advisors that specifically specialize in special needs. So I want everyone to get their paperwork together before they have something tragic happen to them. And the special needs kid is looking at their aunt and uncle like, where did mommy and daddy go? And they're so scared to have to death, and here's another tip I just thought of, put a little money aside for counseling after you die, because I got that one too. My dad wouldn't let me go see a counselor after my mom died. Yeah. And there are all support groups out there, there's free ones, I know that. But always get your paperwork together and put a little money aside, start funding the counseling fund before you die, because when a person dies, a lot of people need to go see a grief counselor, and grief counselors, some are covered by insurance, I know that, but a lot of them are not.
A lot are not.
So that's why I'm saying get a fund together, not only for your child's needs, but also get a short-term fund together for the emergency rainy day counseling, the funeral arrangements, and they make the next of kin do the funeral. They make the next of kin fill out the funeral paperwork, the cremation paperwork. That almost sent me to the ground when I saw date of death. When I saw the call letters, the date of death, I'm like, date of death? I know my dad's date of birth, but that call letter is almost sent me to the ground. So get help with that one too, because they make the next of kin do that. Now, I don't care if it's your able-bodied sister helping you. I don't care if it's a family friend. You need help. As a disabled person,
Wynn, thank you so much for your willingness to come and share and just encourage people to press into what is needed before it's necessary, to have planning in place, ready for it, and to start thinking along those lines now, even though it's uncomfortable and scary and overwhelming, it's so worthwhile. So I just thank you so much for being here and taking.
And if anyone wants to talk to me privately about this stigma, talk to me. Come on, let's start breaking the stigma of having everyone in a pickle when their family members in the medical age coma and they have a disabled family member. Come on, let's start talking to me. And for those who want to follow me, it's win@lifepodcast.weebelieve.com, and Win at Life could be found on all major players. And I appreciate Mandy having me on.
Absolutely. And I'll make sure there's links in the show notes to everything to get in touch with you too. Thank you for listening to episode 157 of Restorative Grief. Living with a disability is still living, and Wynn's story is a generous and stark reminder of the importance of planning for a future, no matter how far out the future may feel. For those of you living with a family member with CP or another disability, please make time to check out the show notes to learn about how you can begin life planning preparation for yourself and your loved ones. The challenge of it in the present day is an entire gift to your future self. If this is your first time listening to the show, I want to thank you for being here today. This grief show is small but mighty, changing lives and grief stories one episode at a time. If you want to be part of the ongoing revolution around healthy and helpful grief support, please consider joining the Patreon for the show, where you'll gain early access to new episodes. If you want to be part of the ongoing revolution of healthy and helpful grief support, please consider joining the Patreon for the show, where you'll also gain early access to new episodes and bonus grief support materials. Remember to check out the show notes for Wynn's podcast and financial planning support, as well as more info about restorative grief. And as always, before we go, one last thing. Please remember, the only solution for grief is to do the work of grieving. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next week.